Hello, welcome to the first Notes from the Edge broadcast. This is one of several new ventures under the Northern Exposure banner. I hope you like the new studio and the lighting. And this is the second venture, and the first one was a Substack mail account for written material called Digging Deeper, and two articles have been published on that so far, and there's many more to follow, and the response has been really very encouraging, and a lot of good discussion, and a lot of very interesting feedback, so hopefully more of that will follow. There will also be an interview series that will be commencing during January, and hopefully a weekly news summary programme, a kind of Sunday lunchtime news review programme with guests. I hope to have that up and running sometime in February. So that's the plan. And this is, I say, this first of a series called Notes from the Edge. So I should start off by explaining the title. So the very simple answer to this is geography. I'm sitting on the edge of what was once a moor, a swamp, a bit of boggy ground. It's still quite boggy, but like all farmland, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. There's drainage and there's pows and there's man-made watercourses aplenty pulling the water off it. But this was originally the edge of the moor. And I'm sitting in Scotland, which is on the edge of Europe. This is, as Colgacus was recorded by Cicero saying, you know, we're on the edge of the world, and there's nothing beyond us. Well, that's maybe not quite true now, but it's a perspective from the edge of Europe as well. So geography is one aspect, but it goes beyond that. The next thing I would say is it's on the edge of ideas. We live in a world where there's a great deal of deception, where there's a great deal of error, where the things that people believe are very often just not so. And it's not that they're not necessarily sincere, it's just that they believe things which are lies. This relates to Orwell's time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. This relates to the claim that the CIA wanted to create a world where everything that the American public would believe is untrue. In such a world, and having been through the COVID crisis, where every mainstream media source, all of the experts, all of the institutions, all of the governments, all of the people who puff themselves up and say, our role is to protect you, the ignorant, the unwashed, from yourselves, from your error. We're wise, you're stupid, we're clever, you're dumb. You have to trust us. All of those people, they were all lying. And there was no excuse, because the figures were clear from the very early days that what they were asking us to do was unjustified. The amount of fear they were generating was unjustified. The whole thing was based on a fabrication, at the very least a massive exaggeration. And they led us into lockdown. So there was no school, there was no church, there was no society, there was no work, there was no production, there was no nothing. But it was all for the greater good. That level of error is a point that cannot be ignored. It's a changing point, a turning point, where the state, where the institutions that we're meant to respect failed so badly, so totally, that we have to look for other voices to find truth, to find insight, to find reality. And Hence we're looking at the edge. We're looking at what is normally marginalised, normally described as either unacceptable or at least doubtful or radical or whatever the word is chosen to make people think that the viewpoint is somehow untrustworthy or unsound without ever actually spelling out what's wrong with it. These are the areas that we're looking towards now for insight, because the mainstream, the experts, the institutions, the universities, the media, the government, they all failed. They all lied. And they're still lying. They're lying still because they're not admitting what they did. So, in terms of ideas, we're looking towards the edge, and these are notes on the edge. The edge as well as to where we are. I look at the economy, and this seems to be a bug looking for a windshield. This seems to be near the brink, near the edge, near the end of something. We've had since 1944 to 1971 with Bretton Woods, the dollar standard backed by gold, from 71 with the dollar standard backed by oil and the largest blue water navy in the world. Nothing else, nothing actually solid. And the debt built and the debt built. And now the American national debt is $34 trillion. It can never be repaid. They're borrowing to pay, they're just rolling over the debt. They're borrowing to take out more debt to cover ongoing expenses. The current budget deficit is $2 trillion. This isn't peacetime. This is without any emergency. This is without anything going wrong. This cannot go on. So part of the expert justification for why it should go on is that the central bankers, these very wise and wonderful people, understand banking and money and the economy in a very special way, and they will guide us through this. I don't buy that in the slightest. These people do not know what they're doing. They think they've got control where they've none, and eventually it will be found out. Eventually they will realise that none of the levers they have are connected to anything. None of the control they think they have works anymore. And they find that they've gone over the edge. And we're near that point. So economically, it's notes on the edge. Geopolitics too. This is being recorded in January 2024. So at the moment we've got Houthi rebels trying to close off the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. So that's the most geopolitically significant waterway in the world. Is currently under threat. We've got ongoing war also in sea in the Black Sea, where the Russian Navy is struggling to take to sea in the Black Sea. We've got a stalemate war in Ukraine that's going nowhere. We've got a war on two fronts between Israel and Hezbollah and Hamas in Lebanon and Gaza respectively. We don't know how that's going to go. This, if not quite on the edge of a worldwide war, is at least showing signs that we are in very dangerous times. So geopolitically on the edge, yeah, that too. In terms of biblical study and faith and eschatology, the study of end times, a lot of people will hold that this is also showing that we're on the edge of huge events. And these are things we'll be discussing also. And finally, and with a thank you to my dear librarian friend for pointing out that another meaning of notes from the edge is marginalia. the side notes and end notes in books that add information, that add citations, and also were made historically by readers to enhance the understanding of those who would come later. And I think that's very much what we're trying to do. It's interesting that none of the modern software programs, Word, etc., really allow proper side note annotations to be done with a text. It's odd that that was missed. So that's what I mean by notes from the edge. If I can just drop into the meaning of the words a little more to try and understand, try and explain what I want to achieve. Notes can mean a journal, a commentary, a report, and there's going to be an element of that in it. There's going to be sometimes I'll be presenting something that I've digested, and I'm laying that out for people to see and to comment on. Sometimes it'll be way more in the line of a message or a notice, something that you need to be aware of, a factual piece of information, getting that information out. Sometimes a summary, a synopsis, an overview of a particular subject, but also sometimes notes as in jottings, a rough draft. A lot of this will not be a final view on any subject, and this is one of the most important things, that I'm looking for audience feedback. I'll give full details at the end of how to send feedback. You make notes on this video, comments on this video, as you see fit, or drop me an email and I'll have full details of how to contact me. If the feedback on any of these notes is of interest, is raises points of missed, points to expand upon, points of controversy, I will do a follow-up note, and I'll go through the correspondence and I'll comment on it again, and we'll continue the discussion. This is very much aimed at being a two-way process, although it's me talking to a camera. If you can send your thoughts and feedback to me, I will address them. I will comment on them, and where I think you're right and I'm wrong, I'll be happy to highlight that and change, because that's what we should all be doing. We should be looking to identify the areas we've been deceived, form a proper view, form a view with discernment and judgment about what the world is, what people are, what the economy is doing, what the world leaders are doing, and then from that determine how we should be, how we should behave, how we should view the world, and how that affects who we are. The other word, notes from the edge, is edge. Edge, I looked it up, it's from a German and Old English word, meaning the sharp side of a spade. That's where it comes from. Hence the choice of Digging Deeper as the name for the Substack mail account. That was inspired by that. So this is about digging. It's about excavating, getting through the rubbish, getting through the lies, and finding some truth, finding things to hold on to and to build a viewpoint from. I mentioned at various times as I watched the No to Name Person campaign, which was very successful and was resisting Scottish Government aggression against the family. All the people who were in that campaign, they all believed in something. They didn't believe in the same thing necessarily. There was old school Tories, there was radical socialists, there was Christian evangelicals, there was all sorts of people. But they all believed in something. They all had some ground on which to stand philosophically, and they could see this encroachment by the government was evil and was wrong and would be harmful. And because they had ideological ground on which to stand, they could argue, they found the strength to argue back. I think this is a bit of an inspiration for this venture as well, because it doesn't require that everyone thinks the same. It requires that everyone thinks. It doesn't require that everyone believes the same thing, but it requires that everyone is open and honest and clear about what they believe and are willing to reassess those beliefs when information comes along that indicates that they should do so. I was looking at biblical references to the edge, and it comes up in two areas. One, the edge of the wilderness is mentioned quite a lot. And wilderness is an interesting word. It reminded me very much of the newsletter From the Wilderness by the late Michael C. Rupert, who very sadly took his life some years ago, but who spoke out against such things as drug running by the CIA, drug and weapons running by the CIA, and wrote very powerfully and accurately about it. He was a detective. He was a detective in the police, and brought that level of precision to what he did. And he also spoke out wonderfully against everything relating to 9/11 that was being covered up, and he dug into those areas very effectively. And he was threatened, and he was essentially run out of the country, and he had a newsletter which he published, and it was called From the Wilderness. And so it was interesting to see the word wilderness cropping up. The word itself doesn't actually mean desert. It means a pasture, but an uninhabited land, an uninhabited plain. And the root word in Hebrew actually is the word to speak, to cry out. So a voice of one crying from the wilderness was how John the Baptist was prophesied as being when it was written in the book of Isaiah. So yeah, edge of the wilderness it feels right. It feels, where are we now? We're on the edge of the wilderness. The wilderness is an area where there's pasture, there's places to be, but there's not people, because the people are elsewhere. They're not occupying truth, they're occupying lies and convenience and deceit. The other way the Bible uses the word edge is edge of the sword. And the sword, in biblical terms, is the word of God. And it's described as being sharper than any two-edged sword. I'll give you the full quote. For the word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So if we can achieve a little bit of that with these conversations, that would be great. So as I said, I hope we'll have a lot of replies. Give me your thoughts as we get into these various subjects as to what you want to be discussing, where you think I'm right, where you think I'm wrong, where you think important issues lie. And I will do follow-ups. So this is note 1. Any follow-ups will be numbered, 1.1, 1.2, etc. And we'll keep producing as long as the conversation goes on. Note 2 is going to be on the subject of the Christian and the state. The conflict between the authority of the state and the authority of faith over an individual, and all of the confusion that lies therein. So that's going to be note 2. So there'll be alerts when that comes up on this channel and also on Twitter. So please follow me at Albin_Rover. The Substack mail account is Digging Deeper, and the email is northern_exposure@protonmail.com. I'll put in the notes details of Patreon and PayPal for anyone who wishes to support the work financially. And note 2 will follow along very shortly. Also, there'll be further Substack articles coming out in the next week, and thereafter interviews and much more content. So I hope you join me for this. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it turns into somewhere we can have a conversation with a bit of time to explore the issues. Some nice, refreshing honesty about what the issues are. The ability to look into awkward areas and not hide from them. And the ability to share our thoughts to everyone's benefit. That's what Notes on the Edge aims to be. So please get involved, please join in, please write to me, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you very much for listening.